Less than 24 hours out from a government shutdown, and the dynamics obviously kind of right down to the wire here.
Yeah, so we broke this in the newsletter into 5 parts. So let's go over all the 5 parts.
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchable News. It's Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. Let's get in the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number 1, the dynamics to watch with the shutdown just hours away. Number 2, mods hold firm on their messaging. And number 3, Democrats want to know how the Pentagon is going to spend its reconciliation money. All right, Jake, let's get into it. We are less than 24 hours out from a government shutdown, and the dynamics obviously kind of right down to the wire here. It will be less than 19 hours. At 12:01 a.m. Wednesday, the federal government will shut down for the first time since 2018. This has been something that I think some people were making fun of us behind the scenes, saying, man, it's 80 days, it's 68 days. You guys can't stop talking about a shutdown. But this is something that we have been talking about for quite a while, since basically March 31st. It's going to be a late night in the Senate. But let's review what we know has happened this week, why it matters, the dynamics of this White House meeting. And the most important, I think more than anyone, we need to tee it up with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. All the eyes, all the pressure is on him.
Yeah, so we broke this in the newsletter into 5 parts. So let's go over all the 5 parts. Number 1, Schumer and Jeffries. It was a bit of a mess yesterday for the 2 top Democratic leaders. Chuck Schumer was floating an off-ramp, a short-term CR to his membership before the shutdown even started. So Republicans were saying, man, this guy's trying to get out of a shutdown before it even takes hold. So we have an advantage here. And this happened before a White House meeting. Progressives said it showed Schumer was trying to get out of this thing before it started. House Democrats, who are already incredibly wary of Schumer, said this guy, again, is going to screw us. And that is not a great position to be in if you are a Democrat.
It's not a great position if you want to negotiate with the president. If it already looks like you're wobbling, why would Republicans give you anything?
You're correct. If you already are trying to get out of the thing before it takes hold, then I'm not sure what your play is here. Now, we mentioned this a couple days ago, and people said to me, you're an idiot, and I am an idiot, but this is not an example of my idiocy. They have too many asks. They have too many asks here. They are asking to roll back the One Big Beautiful Bill. They are asking to cut off the president's ability to enact rescissions, and they're asking for the Obamacare enhanced premium tax credit extension. It's like, which one of these do you want? I mean, they're not going to get rescission. They're not going to repeal the Impoundment Act as part of a 7-week CR. I mean, it's just not going to happen as much as they want it to. And I understand, by the way, I get it. I get that they are the path to 60 votes. I understand that. But they're not going to be able to do that in a 7-week CR. Okay. And so Republicans leave the meeting saying, well, what is it exactly that they want? And by the way, Jeffries was not wobbly at all.
I mean, well, that doesn't surprise me. He has had a steadfast and firm kind of resistance on this since even before the March, when kind of Schumer capitulated the last time. I think there's a couple things that are important here. One, I think Schumer, all eyes are on him. The pressure is on him. I think if you're wobbly before you go into the meeting, that's tough with the president. I do think the Democrats played it somewhat smart in that meeting, though, right? Playing to Trump's kind of ego and also kind of love of being the deal maker, saying, it can't just be a congressional thing. We need you, Mr. President, to be that, the person who's going to help, kind of have the art of the deal. I think that's interesting, and kind of gives a sense that they kind of understand some of the meta dynamics within the Republican Party right now, that it really is Trump's party. I understand what you're saying on Democrats and that they're asking for too much, but I would say I can also understand that the negotiation hasn't even really started, right? They've just put out some fingers in the wind to say, here's the 3 things we want. But it's not as if they're going back and forth, or I think if you put them on truth serum, they think they'd actually get all 3 of those things, right? I mean, we write about this, which is I think a smart point, that as much as everybody says the Obamacare subsidies are the thing that maybe they could find an agreement on, there is very little support. And you've been making this point this past couple weeks, if not, for a little bit longer, on the fact that that's not just some easy give for Republicans.
No, and that we'll get to that in a second, but let's talk about Republicans here. They have a simple message. And they are flawed in so many ways in this situation. The House isn't even here, which is the most boneheaded move of all boneheaded moves. And I know that the Republican leadership in the House thinks very differently of that, and they've made that clear to me. And I am persuadable. I don't have a closed mind on this, but it is boneheaded.
It's certainly risky. It's certainly risky. I mean, the play that makes sense oftentimes is the one that works the best, right?
Yeah, but and I understand it's also risky, to your point, to have him here. I get that. But let's just run this through. 2013, by the way, this shutdown is analogous to 2013 more than anything, because that was the Obamacare shutdown. And in 2018, the government also shut down. Shutdowns don't work, ever. We've covered a bunch of them. You never get out of it what you set out to get. You know what I mean? So like Republicans are saying, great, we're happy to negotiate on any item you want, but we have to keep the government open. Of course, there's no guarantee. That's why they do it on a shutdown, because that's the cudgel. That's the anvil, the hammer, so to speak. But the simplicity of message for Republicans is really helpful. It's just really helpful. And that's why they continue to have an advantage here. And what say you on number 2, which is Republicans still have an advantage for now?
Listen, I think they're winning the message war right now. I mean, if you look at it, right, it's very, to your point, when you're explaining something's going wrong in politics, they are very easy to say, we want to do a clean CR. This is a short-term CR. We're happy to kind of punt the ball down a little bit further. And they're in lockstep. I mean, I think oftentimes what we've seen, and it's usually Republicans who are causing these, oftentimes, maybe always, in modern politics, causing these shutdowns, it has been because Republicans, the conservative faction, and the, kind of more mainstream Republicans have not been on the same page. They're all walking together. And even as much as Democrats are trying to kind of position it as if the White House is in a different position vis-a-vis the congressional Republicans, they're all on the same message here, Jake.
Yeah, and that leads us to number 3, which is Dems are really trying to drive a wedge between Trump and Thune and Johnson. They keep saying, if it weren't for Thune and Johnson, Trump would make a deal. And maybe so, but that doesn't matter, because Thune and Johnson are going to hold Trump firm. And I understand it is really convenient. They've done this for years. They did it in the last administration. And you could make an argument that a deal on Obamacare is the right deal to make right now. If it weren't for, the Hill GOP, it's going to be very difficult, which leads us to the next thing, Anna, which is an ACA deal. A premium tax credit deal is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly risky for Republicans. It has, let's be charitable. Let's say the Senate Republicans want to pass it. And I'm not sure that's true, but I think it can get through the Senate easier than the House. There are 219 or so members of the House Republican Conference, depending on the day.
They could pass it with Democrats, though, Jake.
Yes, and then that puts Johnson in mortal peril.
For sure.
You are talking about saving Obamacare, which Republicans have been campaigning against for 16 years almost. So it's very difficult. What the Democrats are asking is something that very few Republicans on the Hill want. And maybe it's the only way out. I don't know. And maybe it's the only way out. And maybe holding firm here is the way they're going to get this deal. I'm not saying that's not true, but it is just very, very hard.
And I think the last thing we talk about here this morning, Jake, is just the length of the shutdown. I don't know that it's, the longest shutdown of all time. We'll have to see. Schumer's already wobbly. I think that gives Republicans probably some confidence that it's not going to last forever. But given where the fact that the politics are, and certainly when you look at Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, standing very firm, confident that they're going to stick together. He told us last week, Jake, and Republicans feeling like they've got the upper hand. It's hard to know who's going to blink first.
Yeah, we have to mention Trump's kind of unhinged tweet last night, which was an AI video of you've probably seen it if you're listening to this podcast, but it was just unhinged, and it had Schumer actually saying things that he didn't say. And it doesn't look like this president is very eager to negotiate with Democrats. The art of the deal, Anna, will have to wait.
All right, Jake, let's move on to the number 2 story of the morning. Even as Congress and the White House barrel toward a government shutdown, moderate lawmakers in the House and Senate are standing on the sidelines of the conflict, seemingly comfortable with their leaders' positions, even as a major political crisis unfolds. This, of course, is fascinating to watch because so many of these moderates are up for re-election here, and shutdowns are typically, when you're the party that caused them, are not good for your politics. But interesting to see senators like Jon Ossoff, in the most vulnerable Senate Democrat right now in Georgia, saying, he still thinks there's enough time to find a deal, although he's backed up his party's position. I mean, an interesting kind of ability by moderates to say, hey, we're taking one for the team here.
There is not time to find a deal. Just to be clear, I'm not being.
I mean, you could find a deal, and there could be a very short-term shutdown that would not impact anything. That's 100% accurate.
Yeah, he says the clock has not yet struck midnight, but the House isn't even in town. So let's just be clear. But it's very interesting that we don't see our theory, and it's not theory. I mean, it's clear. But like moderates are going to be the ones who are like, all right, guys, it's time to end this.
Right.
Jon Ossoff from a purple state, even to say charitably, Georgia, they are going to be the ones that say enough. We need to get the government open. Like, let's find a deal. If it's not this, it's something else. So it is a fascinating item because they're going to be the ones that end this. And if you look across the line, they are right now backing up their party's position for the most part.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, let's go to the number 3 story of the morning. Democrats are wary of the Pentagon shutdown spending plan. We've got some news. Democratic lawmakers are warning the Pentagon not to use money from the GOP reconciliation package enacted earlier this year to cover unapproved defense costs during a shutdown. This is really interesting because the Hill is still waiting on the Defense Department to give details on where they're going to spend this reconciliation money. It was supposed to happen in August. It is now September 30th, and the Hill still has not heard from them on the specifics. But we've got Senator Jack Reed, the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, saying, I think they consider the reconciliation bill sort of a slush fund. This could be why we've not seen the typical letters that we reported last week coming to the Hill warning of what a shutdown would do for the Pentagon here, Jake, because they do feel a little flush with cash.
They do. That's the reason why we're having a shutdown, I think, because the Pentagon got all the money it needed in the reconciliation bill. You usually, in the run-up to a shutdown, have the House and the Senate passing bills that keep the Pentagon open and funded and uninterrupted in the case of a lapse of funding. We don't see that now because the reconciliation bill puts so much money toward the Pentagon. Now, what Democrats are saying is don't use it for stuff it's not approved to be used on. And that'll be a fight that they'll continue to have. But this is the political reason why a shutdown is possible right now, because the Pentagon does not feel that crunch. And remember, I'll just note this in addition, in 2018, 2019, the last shutdown, which was over the border wall and lasted 35 days, was the end of our book, The Hill to Die On, Anna. That was the end of our rodeo there, so to speak. That was a partial government shutdown. That wasn't a full government shutdown. That's a different ball game. So anyway, be interesting to see how the Pentagon plays this as we head toward October 1st, which is tomorrow. Shutdown tonight, 12:01 a.m.
All right, we will leave it there. Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, share it on social media. Tell your friends. It's the best way for folks to find out about us. And, of course, you can go deeper on all these issues and more at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.